have a dog named Elvis who doesn't sing. But although if you play the harmonica, he will howl, almost like Elvis. Hi, I'm Ravi Kapoor, and I am the playwright of Tea for Toofi. So Tea for Toofi is based on Moliere's Tartuffe, and it is the story of Mr. Processor, who recently retired as a computer engineer, and it's all set in Orange County in the 1980s. And Mr. Processor is going through a spiritual crisis now that he's about to retire, and he brings home a Hindu priest from the local temple, partly because he feels he needs to bring God into his life, and also because he thinks his family have succumbed to mass commercialism and a lack of any kind of spiritual understanding of value. And so he brings this priest to come live in their house. But the priest, whose name is Toofi, maybe doesn't have the most spiritual ideas on the top of his mind. I've always loved commedia. I've always been a big fan of Fervers since I trained in a drama school, which led me to discover Molière. And then specifically Tartuffe is obviously one of his most famous plays, and it's one that's done always, and for good reason as well. I've always been fascinated about adapting classics and thinking about how would I do them? How do they relate to me? How do they relate to my community? Or what's my way in that makes it more immediate to me? And with Tartuffe, I just think it's ripe for setting it in a South Asian community, because if I was sometimes over-reliant on maybe religious aspects of our lives, and sometimes how maybe that makes us vulnerable to maybe not being as free-thinking as we should be, or as circumspect as well. So I've just always been fascinated with that play and trying to figure out what would my version be of Tartuffe. What I would love audiences to come away with when they watch Tea for Toofi is, one, that they just have a great time. I think it's a big farce, it's fun, it's out there. But I think also what I hope they come away with is a sense of empathy for the family as well. In some ways, a little trap that they're kind of stuck in as well. If they're wealthy, they have money, but they're also lacking in something else, and they're not able to come to terms with the wealth that they have. They're not able to feel comfortable in it as well, because it's creating such a sense of guilt within, especially our lead character. So what I hope people kind of come away with is a feeling of going, maybe there's a middle ground for these characters and for us in general in life, of owning whatever we might have and feeling comfortable in it, but also recognizing how lucky we are at the same time. So I think that's what I want people to kind of come away with, is the sense of going, maybe there's a way through this, which is neither too radical one way or too radical the other way. No, I'm not an Orange County native, but my wife, Mira Siman, grew up in Orange County quite a bit. And so I've done stuff in Orange County as well because of that. You know, my first feature, which I wrote with my wife, Mira, and I directed, was called Miss India America. And that was pretty much all set in Orange County and also in the Cerritos area. And then my second feature that I did was called For Samosas. And while it wasn't set in Orange County, it was set in Cerritos. So, yeah, no, it's Artesia, which is kind of Orange County adjacent. I think for some reason Orange County, because of my connection through my wife, has just always fascinated me for a weird reason. I think it is a place generally of wealth. It's not across the board. I recognize that there are lots of different communities within Orange County, but there is a segment of South Asians specifically, I think, that have done pretty well, and they reside in Orange County as well. So I've just always been fascinated by that group of people, and in terms of what their lives are like and what they might be going through. ultimately, I think all of that stuff, all the acting, the writing, directing, the playwriting, and a little bit of prose writing, it all, for me, it's all about story. Ultimately, it all falls under that umbrella of telling story and what that power of storytelling can do and how it can make us empathize with each other and make us understand each other and recognize the humanity in each other's experiences. So I think it all kind of falls in under that umbrella of telling story. How they influence each other, I think it, as having been an actor for many years, it allows me then as a director to communicate with actors in a way that I think they go, oh, this person understands what the process might be from my point of view. I think also what I do love about the writing and directing aspect that maybe the acting doesn't quite give me is that it uses a lot more of myself as well. And I think all of it is kind of feeding in, and especially again on the communication side, being able to communicate with different departments and different people and different aspects of the process of telling story. East 15 was a school based in East London, and it was kind of like your typical drama school in the sense that it had all the usual voice classes and the movement classes and the stage fighting, and we did the Shakespeare and the Chekhov and worked into our American classics and all of that kind of stuff. What made East 15 a little bit different was that it was a little bit more of a revolutionary school. I think it was very much tied into a working class storytelling sensibility and finding a way to bring that community into the fold and have their stories told. There was a particular director around that time called Joan Littlewood who'd done her famous play was a devised play called Oh, What a Lovely War, I believe. And I think it was like a 70s revolutionary play, almost a 60s, 70s revolutionary play. And it was created through improvisation. So the school was set up by people that kind of came through Joan Littlewood's theater experience. And so they had a very strong improvisational aspect to the way they approached the work. And in some ways you could kind of call it a British method school, because sometimes we would do exercises where we would stay in character for weeks and try and live those experiences on the grounds of the school, which sometimes got a little dicey as well when people would take things a little too seriously and get into their roles a little too heavily. And the school was a little bit renowned for going too far sometimes as well. But what it did for me was it really gave me a sense of, oh, you can create your own work, you can create your own stories, which was incredible. And also it taught me about commitment to the craft of acting specifically as well. And you can really discover a character if you spend time with that character and try and figure out what their experiences are outside of the play or outside of the movie that you might be doing. But it was a crazy school. It was a little radical. I feel like theater, the potential right now, because of what's going on with AI and what's going on in digital media, where the humanity is being taken out of the process of creation, I feel like in some ways this is a chance for theater to kind of step in and say, well, we don't do that. We do the opposite. We give you a organic, lived-in human experience which no computer can create for you, because it is immediate and it is happening amongst these people. So in some ways I'm kind of hopeful that theater can kind of fill that gap that we're going to be missing in our other forms of entertainment. I do always feel like as well that the way theater can do that as well is emphasizing the community aspect of theater. And again, so it's not just about putting on a play, it's about what goes around the play in terms of the Q&As, the workshops that you can do around it, bringing in people to talk about the subject matters that might be coming up in the plays, and creating that community amongst the audience and the creators as well. So my hope is that the more we kind of lean into that as a theater making community, the more vital theater will become and remain as well. And then obviously if there's a way for us to just make it always more economically accessible, then we're going to have a greater chance of doing that. I don't know what the answer is to do that and still make sure our actors and our stage managers and our producers have a living wage as well. And especially when beyond getting grants and very generous donors, I'm not quite sure how that works. I think there are people who are involved in it much more than I do, and I am experts at trying to figure that stuff out. But I kind of have hope. I do have hope, because I think theater is going to show once again that it can do something that digital AI generated dross cannot. I'm most excited to see how the narrative, comedic drive of the play, how it goes, how the engine keeps running, and does it keep running, and do people get a greater sense of the stakes through the play and begin to go, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, no, he's not going to do this now, is he? And see if that sustains, and if the audience are able to stay with it without getting exhausted by it as well. So that's the first thing that I want to see, is if that sustains the drive of the play and the comic engine continues through to the end. And then I want to see if the audience have a sense of empathy ultimately for our main family in the play as well, that they, even though they're larger than life, does the audience still kind of connect with them and go, I get you, as well at the same time. So I think they're the two main things that I'm excited to see with this reading. I didn't realize it was specifically for Toofi. There's actors that I love because they all have to kind of be brown, and usually whoever I get to do the readings are usually the best people as well, so they're my ideal cast. If I could cast other actors for different things, actors I just kind of go, oh, I would love to work with that person. I would love to work with somebody like Jack Black. I would love to cast Jack Black in something. I just love how out there he is, and how you still empathize with him. I think he's a brilliant character actor. I love. I mean, if I could work with friggin' Meryl Streep or something, that would be incredible. It's hard. There's so many actors that I can't think of any of them right now. I love watching my soccer team, Liverpool, which is where I'm from, my hometown. I try and watch every game on the TV, and it's addictive, and I'm up at 4:30 in the morning sometimes because obviously it's happening in a different time zone. That's one fact. I have a dog named Elvis who doesn't sing, but although if you play the harmonica, he will howl, almost like Elvis. Which is another fun fact. I can play a little bit of blues harmonica. I've tried many instruments and not very good musically, but I did get a little bit far with playing blues harp. I love a good curry, and I know that just seems like a cliche for an Indian dude, but I just think curry is great. I loved this, and still do, a playwright, actor, director. Steven Berkoff was a big influence on me, especially on my early writing. And Steven Berkoff was a physical theater guy, but he also wrote in verse, and he would adapt. He'd adapt Greek classics and set them in his neighborhood of East London or West London and turn them into these modern gangster stories, which were written in verse and were very physical. And my first play was my attempt to do a Berkoff thing, but I used a Hindu mythology play, or Hindu mythology story, and reset it in modern England and wrote it in verse as well. So Steven Berkoff has always been a massive influence, and there was one play in particular that he had called Greek, and he was on in the West End, and I think I just left drama school and I was working front of house on that show. No, actually, it was Coriolanus that I was working front of house, his Coriolanus. But I remember going to see Greek and just being blown away by it and going, wow, theater can be so exciting and so visceral as well, and hit you on so many levels. So he was a big influence on me. And then there was a theater company in the UK again called Theatre Complicité. They all came from... I think they all met a physical theater school in France, and so they were very much into clowning, and especially with their earlier plays, it was very pure clown plays, and again very physical as well. And I just fell in love with the work they were doing in the early days. They became a little bit more esoteric later on, and still great, but different. So I would say they're two big theatrical influences, and again, Commedia in general has just been a big thing for me. And you see the influence of Commedia and everything afterwards, and in our modern day sitcoms, it feels like everything is kind of part of that line from wherever Commedia came from as well. I just recently went to Paris for the second time, and it's been a long time, and I just think everyone should have a French baguette and a nice cup of black coffee in a little Parisian Piedmont. Is that right, Piedmont? There's a scene in Richard III where Richard woos, I think it's Lady Anne. He's just killed her husband, or had her husband killed. I can't remember which one it is. And she's literally, leading the body, and she's really, and Richard III shows up. Well, he's not Richard III yet, but he's going to become. And he's the cause of her husband's death. And at the beginning of the scene, she's just like, "You toad, I hate you, you're evil, you're horrible." And then somehow he's able to woo her and convince her that he's the next great love of her life. And just the audacity of one of the character and then one of Shakespeare going, "I'm going to write this scene," where she's going to completely turn around and he's going to say, "Kill me, I love you so much, then kill me." And the play acting of the character and his ability to manipulate this person, and we as an audience kind of buy into it as well and go, "Yeah, fair enough, I can understand why you, Lady Anne, if it's Lady Anne, why you succumb to his horrible charm." So I always love that scene. Every time that scene comes up and I ever see Richard III, even though it's a brutal tragedy in some ways, that scene makes me smile every time, especially when it's done well. I don't have a go-to curry place specifically in Orange County, but obviously you're so close to Artesia and Pioneer Boulevard. And there's just so many restaurants on that strip. And again, my movie for Samosas, which you can watch on Hulu, is all set on that strip on Pioneer Boulevard in Artesia. And so you can watch it and see all those restaurants. So there's a number of restaurants on that strip that I really like. There's Upadi Palace on there, which does a great chana bhatura, and chana is chickpeas, garbanzo bean curry, and a bhatura is like a deep fried bread, and when it comes out it's like a dome, and then you put your finger in it and all the steam comes out and then it flattens out. But they do a really good chana bhatura. So go to Udupi Palace on Pioneer Boulevard and order that. I'm super excited about doing this reading at Chance, and I really appreciate Chance for doing it and for them to continue to support new plays and new artists. And I don't know if I'm new anymore, but I feel like I'm new. I always feel like I'm just starting out. And I'm just excited to connect with the audience at Chance, and I appreciate the opportunity to share Tea for Toofi. And again, I think it should be a fun ride. Come watch Tea for Toofi at the Chance Theatre on April 9th. It should be a blast.